Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to our Subscriber Game Tournament Season 2 as we continue with our Round 1 matchup in Group 8 with Meng in the green versus gamerdude in the red. And taking a look at their draft, Meng is bringing Xu Huang, Liu Chong, and Zhang Liang. So we have a couple interesting generals. Liu Chong obviously with Show Force, very strong. Zhang Liang has some secret tech with his unique unit as well. So taking a look at these units, we have some Northern Lancer Cavalry for Xu Huang, which are a decent shot cavalry choice, especially considering the generals that are brought here. For Liu Chong, we have 4 units of his unique crossbow unit, which I think it's a very hard unit to protect. They're not that great in melee. They have the defensive armor stats, but they don't have the offensive stat to back them up. And we also have one of the Chen Peacekeeper, which is a good unit here, as they are basically crossbow horseback unit with decent range and very good offensive and defensive capability as a cavalry unit. Now, just to be clear, all the units are on ultra unit side, so it's 40 for cavalry, 160 for the infantry. As we mentioned before, there is really no limitation on unit size for the tournament. I don't think it makes a huge difference. Depends on just what people can handle with their computers and internet connection. So if you want to play on slightly larger than large, that is fine. Then for Zhang Liang here, the secret tech is the Yaoguai Hunter, which is not a unit you often use. It's a poison unit that has snipe and stock, but it's a secret tech not because of the poison, which is good for damage, but for foresight. It's a unit with a lot of range in terms of vision, so you can use it sort of as a foresight replacement. It's not as big as foresight, which is 5,000 meters. I think it's 150 meters for the Yaoguai Hunters, so it's a deterrent against Yanbaihu when you don't want to recruit one of those strategists. I'm not sure how well it works because Zhang Liang doesn't really have good units to pair with him, and we see the exemplars of Dao as the infantry. It's an axe unit, but honestly they don't actually use axe. It's marked as axe, but it's just a mace, and they don't have shield break because of that. The damage is alright. I have actually never really seen them in combat. From memory, I feel like their defensive stats are pretty average, and they're not unbreakable or anything like that, so I'm curious to see how they perform here. On gamerdude side, we have a much more standard composition. We have the Vengeful plus Xu Huang combination of roars for 48 morale damage if you use them together. And then we also have Zhou Yu with 1 unit of the Handmade Guard to provide the guard passive and to provide that foresight to counter any stock unit. So in this case, the Yaoguai Hunters would be visible because the snipe and stock combination will pretty much get ruined by Zhou Yu's presence. On Vengeful, we have 2 of the Northern Mounted Archers, 4 units of the Ye Vanguard Spearmen. This is a pretty good ratio of troops. And then on Xu Huang, we have 6 units of the Northern Lancer Cavalry. It's a very heavy cavalry composition. There's not many infantry presence on this side, and I think that's okay, because you're running against a unit or an army that has melee infantry, no hard counters to cavalry at all. The 4 crossbow unit, if you approach them from different sides, will have a very hard time to micro against your cavalry. They could go into square. It is a possibility, but firing rate is going to be rather limited. So I think even if you're just charging straight, they're probably not going to be able to do enough damage at your cavalry before you collide into them and probably decimate them at that point. So it depends on, the situation to see how you approach this range heavy composition and see if you can play out the match afterwards. In terms of general strength, I think it favors Meng a bit because all 3 generals are combat capable, whereas Zhou Yu, despite the double health and the unbreakable stat plus a good weapon, he's still a strategist and it's rather limited. But perhaps fighting together alongside a Handmade Guard for that 25% damage resistance, maybe he can turn it around. So let's see how this match actually plays out. Alrighty, we have some really interesting deployment across the board. We have a diagonal line of infantry and range units not being protected, not in square formation. From the onset, we have some flanking northern mounted raiders, which is strange because the fire arrow is only strong around these trees, so technically they should be a hindrance around these trees. If you just got them for harassment on the open field, they are a lot less valuable because you pretty much end up with a unit, well, in this case 40 units of archers, 1/4 the unit size of infantry. And then we have all the cavalry in the back alongside the general with the handmade guard. Zhou Yu should just be with them. There's no reason to be scared of him not joining the fight. You still have Wisdom of the River. There is no Stifling Deluge, but you also have Inspiring Surge. You also have a good weapon, as you can see. It's half attack speed for strategists. That part hurts, but good health on Zhou Yu. It's hard to tell on Ultra unit size because it's like 25%. It's a weird ratio, right? It's 33% more than large, which is what I'm familiar with. But instead of 40k, it's 53k. So we'll see how this plays out. Liu Chong being quite advanced here is correct. So he has his crossbow activated firewall right away. He can't firewall moving, but he's probably moving in for a harass here. The poison arrows, just need to spray them and then back off, switch targets. Okay, it's not going to do much against Liu Chong here. He has vision of all the units because we said they have a bit of foresight in them. Although they're exposed, not invisible, they're getting shot. He's going really close to them though for some reason. He is getting them to waste a lot of ammo. I don't know what they're trying to do with this. Is he not firing? Like, shouldn't you be firing here? Does he think he's still invisible? Yeah, a bit confused of that decision. But they didn't take that much damage, so it's fine. But now they're just backing up. Like, maybe just shoot, because when the cavalry gets here, you're still dead. There we go. Fire one here, fire one here, fire one here if you can. You want one volley at each target, because you're just applying the poison. Don't refresh it. There's no point in refreshing it. The cavalry's making a move. Yeah, this is a bad use of poison arrows. Like, poison arrows, 5 base damage. Poison effect, 30 damage. And they're dead. Okay, we don't need to look at them anymore. Let's see how they approach this crossbow setup. Oh, they don't actually have square. Yeah, so just open up multiple angles and charge them. Mixed missile wouldn't help at all. Charge negation against, range from the front doesn't do you much good. We have a very aggressive charge. I don't recall seeing him use show of force. Maybe he shot the cavalry. Maybe that's why they're missing a chunk of health. Maybe he was aiming for a general and they hit the cavalry. Okay, the range units are being sent out alone. Pretty lonely over there. But there's no micro over here at all. I don't understand why gamerdude didn't run his unit back into his 4 squares. Like, just fight here. Combination roar. Yeah, the handmade guard's gonna route from that. I'm surprised these... Liu Chong used one of his unbreakable ability to tie through the combination roar. I was surprised they actually didn't route. I guess it's just timing of this ability. Well, any one of them to block it. They're using it to protect them from range, because it's range block chance. But we're basically throwing the generals. They're not microing these units at all, and they're getting picked off, actually. The crossbow units are killing them for free. Longer range. And no response. Now they're trying to run back to help the unit. Yeah, this is just super disconnected. They're bounced back, but they're not being used. Oh, show of force. a lot of friendly fire, but I think it hit Xu Huang a couple times there. Exemplars of Dao. I guess the damage is okay. A lot of armor piercing on them. Not unbreakable, but high morale. Decent defense. They will definitely win. I mean, these are just spear guards. They're terrible in melee. Xu Huang's getting targeted. Ventral's not being microed. Xu Huang's dead. So the unbreakable one is gone. They got out a roar. I wonder if it's going to matter at all, because it's unbreakable, unbreakable, unbreakable. So I don't know why he's roaring at them. They are providing the bonus, so I guess them standing here is not a bad thing. Maybe they could help in the fight, but most likely not. They're peeling Liu Chong away because he's infinite damage in the future. That's a fair use here. The cavalry's finally come back to assist against the melee. It's not a great charge because he kind of piled up the charge together. Yeah, commanding all your unit together to take one target, it's not the best use. Spread them out, charge them separately, cycle charge. You get a lot more value there. And no doubt Xu Huang might trade off a little bit, but yeah, they got him. Vengeful went down. Zhou Yu's mounted. Yeah, Liu Chong doesn't need to be here. Wisdom River is used to debuff the enemy. The cavalry, as you can see, this is not charging, and the ones that are trying to charge are just bouncing into their own units. If this was cleaner, yeah, there we go. They're trying to flank. If they can get some flank charges, they can do a bit more here. See if they can organize a charge here. But Xu Huang is here. Xu Huang's going to roar on them. If they can do a roar plus a slam, it's going to be very painful for the cavalry. Cavalry's peeling off together again as Xu Huang. They can probably kill Xu Huang here. They took quite a bit of damage from those charges. We have one more alive. The crossbow units are coming. They're slow, but they are coming, so maybe they can help kill off these cavalry here together. The forest is not the friend of the range units because it's 25% range. So using that, probably just protect friendly unit from getting shot, giving them range block chance. The roar kicked in. That's going to do it. That roar's going to do it. It's hard to shoot into the forest, so fighting here it's okay. They're getting picked off now. I mean, Xu Huang with that much health is still not too bad. Okay, he got dismounted there. But he still has the slam. And he still has the roar. We have a different type of slam. That's actually pretty decent. I mean, 10k is increased in value because we're on large unit side. All the ability damage goes up as well. Yeah, they're just gonna get pinned down. I mean, whether or not Xu Huang goes down doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Liu Chong getting chased by the cavalry. Does he have a roar up? The roar went up, and that might do it. Ooh. He's targeting units, which is good. Alrighty, so this fight was really disconnected by gamerdude. I think he had a very mobile army, but he wasn't, you know, he doesn't have the micro alertness to manage this army because there were so many openings. Essentially, Zhou Yu led all the cavalries to the flank, and what we have here is 4 squares that never moved. Right, they deployed here in the middle, and they stayed there in the middle, which is okay. And then you have Xu Huang and Wen Chou with the handmade guard, which is a good choice to keep them next to your 2 combat generals, off to the left. So at the early stages, we have 2 generals plus 1 cavalry on the left flank. We have your 4 squares in the middle. We have the range cavalry plus all the other shot cavalry plus Zhou Yu off to the side. And in response to that, Lu Meng sent his cavalry and his infantry to charge the generals and the units in the forest, while his range infantry marched closer to the enemy cavalry position. And this was the result of that initial crossbow shots, right? All these horse archers died for no reason, to be honest. Just basically lack of alertness. What really should have happened in that play is Wen Chou Xu Huang with the handmade guard runs in the middle of the 4 squares and forces the enemy cavalry and generals to fight at the squares, delay the enemy infantry from making contact with your infantry, because you have something that's faster, that can spread out and charge the 4 very expensive crossbow unit, but very vulnerable crossbow unit with no generals supporting them, and just quickly wipe them out with your 6 cavalry. Then, as the enemy have a difficult time approaching you in the square, maybe you lost 2 of the squares on the left side because the enemy infantry collided and they're going to trade better. But it's just melee infantry at that point. And the general contest is pretty fair, I feel like. I don't think there was any, major differences between the general ability. There was a lot of waste of roars against 3 unbreakable generals for no reason. Those could have been done better against the enemy infantry. But the cavalry could have flanked behind the infantry and help wipe them out, and the cavalry can help kill the generals, because the only general that really possessed some sort of, roar and slam ability is Xu Huang. So as long as you work around him, focus him down, I think gamerdude could have won that. Basically didn't do anything against enemy range unit. I tell everyone range unit's hard to play in multiplayer. It's true. If your opponent actually targets them, leaving them alone feels like the worst thing you can do. So you give them the ranged weapon, you don't go after their fragile units, and you fight in the worst possible setup for you. So that's the battle. Let's take a look at the casualties. So these numbers are going to be inflated a little bit because we are playing on ultra unit side. The cavalry, this is just fighting the melee infantry here. I think they did okay. They could have easily wiped out every single one of these. These cavalries didn't get to do very much. It's not their fault. They ran into the generals, and the roar basically got them, right? So that pretty much shut them down. But the generals were not going to get roared away because they were all unbreakable, and they all did decently. Liu Chong's not getting exploited like the way that I imagined he would. It's also hard to exploit him in this composition, because if you want to exploit Liu Chong, you need to be in a very passive comp and you need to play very patiently, where you poke and you poke and you poke. So that's probably where he would shine. Yao Guai Hunters were used really weirdly, right? He walked up, didn't fire, and then got shot, ran back, and then started firing on 1 target. As you can see, 0 kills. Poison kills will not count, which basically means the arrow had no damage. The poison's all the damage you have, so don't apply on the same target over and over again, only to refresh like 4 seconds that went away. So that's pretty much not how you want to use poison unit. Exemplar of Dal. I don't know. I'm not sure this proves they're viable, because I'm pretty confident if the cavalry were micro better, they would have easily died in that situation. And even with the poor initial micro, once they got the flank around, I still think they did decent damage against them, because these were the only target they fought, and there were decent kills on these units. So I think that was fine. And at the end of the day, just a very disjointed fight happening all over the place. And if you're going to fight in a setup where your army is super mobile and you're trying to look for different openings, you need to be alert with your micro to what's happening all around the map, look for opportunities and actually play it out. If that's too overwhelming for your RTS experience, then you want to play something that's more static. There is a decent static portion of the army, that wasn't utilized, because you have something that's a defensive position, you want to fight within that, not fight outside of that. Because there are 2 of them that were just too far away, right? You set up these 4 little spots with guerrilla deployment. You should fight within their range and try to maximize their value that way. It's also not wise to put them in the forest because they're also a range unit. So the tree is going to block a lot of that vision. You want to fight out in the open with these, where the enemy cavalry is trying to run to you and just shoot them down. That's the ideal setup. If you're more mobile than the enemy, you can have a defensive base in the back where you're hiding your generals. To be honest, all the generals and cavalry should have gone together. And if you want to provide a bait, these should have been your bait to get the enemy general to run into you. And then if they leave their range unit alone, you come in and you crush them. But good fight. Lu Meng moves on, and we'll see him matched up against Banana Fishbones in round 2. And since he won in 8 minutes, he would have side selection. So until then, bye.